They say the truth has no age, but when an 11-year-old boy stood up in court and pointed his finger at a grown man, he didn't just tell the truth, he shook the system to its core. Hi, friends. I hope this message finds you and your family safe and well today. What you're about to hear isn't just a courtroom drama. It's a story about courage in its purest form, about a boy whose voice broke through silence, shattered assumptions, and brought a family back from the brink. So settle in, because today, we're starting with a whisper that turned into a thunderclap. The courtroom was full, stand-in room only. You could feel it in your chest before anyone even said a word. Tension, thick like fog. People leaned forward in their seats. Reporters whispered into their recorders. Lawyers shuffled papers just to have something to do with their hands. And then came the moment. The lawyer stood up and spoke. "Benjamin," he said gently, "can you repeat what you just said?" Every head turned toward the witness stand. There, perched on the high wooden chair, sat Benjamin Carter, 11 years old, small for his age. His legs didn't even touch the floor, but his hands clutched a silver pocket watch, his dad's. The only thing he'd had left when the police took his father away. The watch ticked. Benjamin didn't. Not yet. The courtroom held its breath. His face was young, sure, but there was something in his eyes, something ancient, like pain had given him the kind of wisdom no child should carry. The lawyer tried again, softer now. "It's okay, Benjamin, take your time." A beat, then another, and then Benjamin spoke. "My dad didn't do it," he said, "but I know who did." It was like the room had been struck by lightning. A single sentence, and the crowd lost all sense of time. All eyes turned toward the back, where Mr. Everett Baldwin, a balding, sharp-faced man in a tailored gray coat, suddenly sat up straighter. His jaw tightened. His fingers gripped the armrest like it might keep him from sliding into something much deeper. Benjamin didn't flinch. His eyes stayed locked on Mr. Baldwin like a spotlight, steady, sharp, and sure. A murmur spread across the courtroom. "Did he say Baldwin? That's the neighbor, right? Wait, what's going on?" Even Benjamin's father, Caleb Carter, seated at the defense table with eyes dark from months of worry, looked up for the first time with a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, his son had found the key. Suddenly, the judge slammed the gavel down with a loud crack. "Order in the court," he barked, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. But it was too late. The silence had already been broken. The lawyer leaned forward. "Benjamin, what exactly did you see?" Benjamin's small fingers moved across the smooth surface of the watch, round and worn from use. He didn't look scared. He looked ready. He glanced toward his mother, Tiana Carter, sitting just a few rows behind him, her knuckles white from clutching the armrest, her face a mix of fear and hope. She gave him the smallest nod. Benjamin took a breath, a deep one. "I saw Mr. Baldwin," he said, voice stronger now, "at Mr. Richards' house, right by the security camera, a few days before it broke." Gasps. This time, the judge didn't even try to silence the crowd. He just stared, eyes narrowed, brow furrowed. Mr. Baldwin shifted in his seat again, but this time it was different. His shoulders rose, lips tight. A bead of sweat formed at his temple. The lawyer asked again, "Are you sure, Benjamin?" "Yes," the boy replied. He had a ladder. He was standing on it. He had a screwdriver in his hand. I remember the color. Red handle. The courtroom froze. Then the prosecutor jumped to his feet. "Objection, Your Honor. Speculative," the gavel struck again. "Order," the judge roared. Then, turning to Benjamin, his voice lowered. "This is a serious accusation, young man. If this is true, we need to investigate further." The judge turned to the crowd. Court is recessed for 1 hour. The gavel hit the bench one final time. The room erupted. As Benjamin walked out of the courtroom, he wasn't walking like a kid who had just tattled on a neighbor. He walked like someone who had just changed everything. His mom grabbed his hand in the hallway. "You did the right thing, baby," she whispered, her voice shaken. "No matter what happens next." Benjamin didn't speak, but his hand tightened around the pocket watch. He remembered the night the sirens came, the flash of red and blue, the handcuffs, the way his dad whispered, "It'll be okay," when even he didn't believe it. Benjamin squeezed his eyes shut. Not this time. This time he would fight. It was supposed to be just another quiet evening, the kind of night where the smell of dinner still lingered in the air and the soft hum of cartoons floated from the living room. Benjamin Carter lay sprawled across his bed, flipping through his favorite comic book, the one where the smallest kid in town grows up to save the world. In that moment, he didn't feel like a hero. He just felt safe. Home was quiet, familiar, but then everything shattered. A flicker of red and blue light splashed across the walls. Then came the sirens, screeching, growing louder. The comic slipped from his hands. Benjamin sat up, his heart pounding in his ears. He scrambled to the window, his breath catching as he looked down at the driveway. Police cars, 3 of them. Their doors flung open, officers spilling out like shadows. Benjamin bolted down the stairs, each step louder than the last. And when he reached the front door, there it was, his father, Caleb, on the porch, hands behind his back, handcuffs gleaming beneath the porch light. Tiana, Benjamin's mother, stood to the side, one hand pressed against her lips, the other trembling at her side. Her face, usually warm, vibrant, was pale, crushed. "Dad!" Benjamin cried out, voice cracking as he stepped into the night air. Caleb turned his head slowly. His eyes met Benjamin's, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. The sirens, the neighbors peeking from windows, the murmurs, the judgment, just father and son, and a look that said, "I'm sorry, this isn't how I wanted you to see me." "Everything will be okay, son," Caleb said, his voice low and tight. "I promise." But Benjamin didn't believe it, because none of this was okay. "You didn't do anything," Benjamin yelled. "Tell them you didn't do anything." But the officers didn't care. They didn't flinch. They were already leading Caleb to the cruiser, hands on his shoulders, boots on the gravel. "Dad, Dad, please!" Benjamin chased after them, his small legs pumping, his lungs burning. The courtroom was different this time. It wasn't just packed, it was electric. You could feel it in the air, like something about to snap. Even the judge looked more alert than usual, his fingers lightly tapping the desk. The prosecution team whispered urgently among themselves. Reporters hovered near the doors, pens ready, cameras flicking to life. But at the center of it all was Benjamin Carter. He sat upright on the witness stand, hands folded tightly in his lap, his father's silver pocket watch still clutched in his palm. The chain wrapped once around his fingers like a lifeline, and this time, he wasn't trembling. This time, Benjamin had come to speak with purpose. The lawyer stepped forward slowly, calm but focused. "Benjamin, can you tell the court what you saw at Mr. Richards' home before the camera stopped working?" Benjamin took a steady breath. He nodded once, and then he spoke. "I saw Mr. Baldwin," he said clearly. 3 days before the camera broke, he was on a ladder. He had tools. He was messing with the camera above the garage. The crowd stirred. A murmur rose like wind through dry leaves. Even the prosecutor blinked. "When exactly did you see this?" the lawyer asked. "Saturday afternoon," Benjamin answered without hesitation. It was sunny. He kept looking over his shoulder like he didn't want anyone to notice. He paused, then added, "But I noticed." There was a shift in the courtroom, not a sound, just energy. And then Mr. Everett Baldwin, sitting stiffly at the back, shifted in his seat. His face was pale. His hands gripped the sides of the bench. A bead of sweat rolled down his temple. He felt it. The truth was inching closer. The lawyer turned toward the judge. "Your Honor, we request that the court admit this testimony as grounds for further investigation into Mr. Baldwin's involvement." Before the prosecutor could object, the judge leaned forward. "Mr. Baldwin," he said, voice low and deliberate, "we'll need a response, now." The courtroom froze again. Baldwin licked his lips. I was just fixing it," he stammered. "Richard asked me to. It was acting funny." "Funny?" The lawyer raised an eyebrow. "Funny enough to disable right before a break-in. Convenient, wouldn't you say?" Baldwin's face tightened. He tried to speak again, but the words didn't come. The lawyer moved closer. "And yet," he said slowly, "your fingerprints were found on the broken housing of the camera, your presence confirmed by this witness, and your explanation, paper thin." He stepped back, turning to the judge. "We ask that the court expand the investigation. This case is no longer just about Mr. Carter's alleged crime. It's about a cover-up." The judge didn't hesitate. Motion granted. The gavel came down, bang, and a wave of realization swept the room. Everything had changed. Outside the courthouse, the crowd gathered. Whispers turned to questions. Questions turned to outrage. And inside, Mr. Baldwin sat slumped in his chair, his hands trembling, his jaw clenched. Benjamin didn't gloat. He didn't even smile. He simply sat there, watching the unraveling of a lie. The truth didn't need celebration. It just needed air. That night back home, Benjamin sat on the porch with his mom. The stars stretched across the sky above them, and the air was thick with summer heat. "You were brave today," Tiana said quietly, brushing his hair with her fingers. "I just told the truth," Benjamin replied. "Sometimes," she said, "that's the bravest thing anyone can do." He looked down at the pocket watch. The ticking felt different now, less heavy, less lonely. And as he watched the stars blink overhead, he whispered, "I hope Dad comes home soon." The next day, Baldwin broke. He stood in court, hands shaking, voice cracking. "Okay," he muttered. "I'll tell you what happened." Gasps, everyone leaned forward. "I went to Richard's house. We argued about money he owed me. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I just wanted to scare him." The lawyer didn't let up. "So you damaged the camera?" "Yes," Baldwin said, ashamed. "I didn't want to be seen. I was afraid someone would find out I was there." The courtroom erupted, some in tears, some in shock, some just shaking their heads. Caleb Carter at the defense table dropped his head into his hands, not in despair, but in relief. Across the room, Tiana wept openly. Benjamin, he just sat still, watching as the lie dissolved, watching as justice started to stitch itself back together, thread by thread. 2 weeks, that's how long it had been since Everett Baldwin confessed in open court. But for Benjamin Carter, it felt like an eternity. 2 weeks of a quiet house, 2 weeks of watching his mom stare blankly at the clock, 2 weeks of holding that silver pocket watch so tight it left marks on his hands. But today, that changed. Today, a car pulled into the driveway, and Benjamin didn't wait. He burst through the front door, bare feet pounding the wooden floor. His lungs burned as he sprinted outside, sunlight pouring over the lawn. "Dad!" he screamed, voice breaking. And there he was. Caleb Carter stepped out of the car, weary, a little thinner, a little slower, but alive, whole. Benjamin didn't give him a chance to speak. He launched into his father's arms, sobbing with joy, his arms wrapped tight around his waist. "See?" he cried. I told them you didn't do anything." Caleb dropped to his knees, pulling Benjamin close, crushing him into a hug that had waited far too long. "I know," he whispered into his son's hair, "and I'm so proud of you." From the porch, Tiana Carter stood frozen. Her hand trembled as it reached for her chest, tears streamed down her face. Then she walked forward, fast, then faster, until the three of them were in one embrace, the kind that doesn't need words, a family, finally whole again. The days that followed were filled with both joy and reflection. They cooked dinner together, laughed at old stories, watched movies under a blanket on the couch. But even in that comfort, a question lingered. How many others were still out there? How many other fathers, sons, mothers, sitting in cold cells, with no Benjamin to speak for them? One night, over dinner, Caleb looked up from his plate. "We can't just move on," he said. "We got lucky. Most people don't have that chance." Tiana nodded. No child should have to do what Benjamin did. But no family should be silenced either. Benjamin looked up, eyes wide. "What if we help them?" he asked. "What if we create a place where people can tell the truth, like I did?" His parents exchanged a glance, and just like that, a spark was lit. Brave Voices Foundation was born, a mission, a promise, to stand with the falsely accused, to protect the silenced, to make sure no one ever has to fight alone again. Caleb began working with local lawyers, offering testimony, giving speeches. Tiana organized town halls, fundraisers, school visits. Benjamin? He started a new notebook, but this one wasn't for tracking clues. It was for stories of hope, of justice, of people just like his dad, waiting to be heard. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, the three of them stood at the window. Benjamin held a small candle in his hands. He lit it carefully. The flame flickered. "This light," Caleb said softly, "isn't just for us." He rested a hand on his son's shoulder. "It's for everyone still waiting." Benjamin stared at the flame, watching it dance. "Do you think they'll see it?" Tiana knelt beside him. "They don't have to see it," she whispered. "They'll feel it." Together, they placed the candle on the windowsill. Its golden light spilled into the night like a beacon, a promise that no voice would be forgotten again. In the final hearing, the courtroom felt more like a sanctuary than a battlefield. The case was closed. The charges were dropped. The apology was formal, signed, and recorded. But what mattered most was what came next. Judge Elise Montgomery, a woman known for her composure, looked out across the gallery. She didn't raise her gavel. She didn't need to. Instead, she did something rare for a courtroom. She spoke from the heart. "This case is about more than one man's freedom," she said, voice calm but heavy with purpose. "It's about what happens when the system leans on the wrong side of the truth. When assumptions replace facts. When fear replaces fairness." She turned toward Caleb Carter, sitting with his wife and son. "Mr. Carter, you were failed by a system meant to protect you. You were arrested without evidence, imprisoned by assumption, silenced by the very law you trusted." Then she looked to Benjamin, now sitting taller in his chair, the pocket watch still gently ticking in his hand. "But it was your son who brought the truth into this room, and in doing so, reminded us all what courage looks like. Who was right? Who was wrong? Caleb Carter was innocent, that much is clear. Everett Baldwin was guilty, not just of damaging a camera or manipulating evidence, but of trying to bury the truth under layers of control. But here's what's more important. Why did Baldwin do it? Not for malice, not out of hatred, but out of fear. Fear of being caught, Fear of being embarrassed, fear of what the world might think if the truth came out, and fear, left unspoken, can turn good people into shadows. What do we learn? We learn that justice isn't automatic. It doesn't arrive just because it should. It arrives because someone demands it, because someone refuses to stay quiet, because sometimes someone as small as an 11-year-old boy, stands up and says, "That's not what happened." We learn that truth is fragile, but also powerful, that a notebook and a pocket watch can sometimes shake a courtroom harder than any lawyer. And we learn that it takes a community, not just a judge, not just a lawyer, not just a child, to rebuild trust when it's broken. And what now? The Brave Voices Foundation now supports dozens of families. What started with one candle on a windowsill has become a movement. People across the country are riding in, sharing their stories, finding their courage, and Benjamin Carter, he's still listening, still riding, still watching, because once you've seen the world go dark, you never stop protecting the light. Final words from the channel. If this story moved you, if it made you cry, made you think, or made you remember something you've buried, we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. What would you have done if you were Benjamin? Like this video if you believe the truth can come from anyone, no matter how small. Share this with someone who still believes one voice can't make a difference. And subscribe to our channel, Black Women, where we tell the stories that systems tried to silence, but courage made loud again. Because justice isn't blind, but together we can help her finally see.